Well, welcome to another Wine Time Yakima. We're here at the Yakima Visitor Center, and as always, we want to start by saying a very big thank you to them for hosting us again today, and to Adam, who manages the facility. It really is a wonderful facility. There's lots of things going on here. It's always good a chance to come down and have a visit and enjoy a glass of wine. And we're enjoying a glass of wine today with Yesenia Hunter. Yesenia, it's so lovely to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for Wine Time. Yeah. Now, you've chosen a red for us, a Merlot.
I have.
And it's from Two Mountain, which is in the Yakima Valley.
Lovely, thank you.
So are you a red drinker?
I am. Mostly blends because I don't know wine other than something in between. So blends seem to hit the spot for me.
Well, earlier in our series, we had Caleb Foster, who's a winemaker.
Cheers.
Cheers. It's so nice to see you. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
in. Ooh, that is very nice. And Caleb was saying, when it comes to tasting wine,
What's the tip?
you just open the bottle, you pour it out, and you say, that's nice.
There you go.
That's how you taste wine. And he's right, because that's really, really nice.
That's lovely.
That's very nice.
Yeah,
So that's a 2022 Merlot. Well, Yesenia, it's a real pleasure to meet you. Now,
Thank you.
your backstory is absolutely fascinating, which is one of the reasons I was so looking forward to having you as a guest for this series. And I don't really know exactly where to start.
Okay.
Because you are involved in so many aspects of volunteerism and so many things that happen in the Yakima Valley that you've attached to and that you've brought your passion to improve the community. But you also teach at Heritage University.
Right.
But you're not from Yakima, and in fact, you're not even from the United States.
Right.
You were born in Mexico. So let's start there.
Okay.
What was the journey from Mexico to, of all places, the Yakima Valley?
Yeah, okay. Well, I came to the Yakima Valley when I was 5, but we had lived in California for about a year after we migrated from Mexico. I mean, the journey, that's a really big question with like very little memories that I have of crossing the border. So we crossed the border illegally, and we were undocumented for like most of my young life. But my dad had actually been migrating to the United States many times before I actually came. For a long time, crossing the border was a lot easier before, the 70s, before the 60s. A lot of immigration laws changed and made it more difficult for people to cross. But our livelihood in Mexico was supported by his labor in the United States. And when it became more difficult for him to cross, that's when we made the decision, or my parents made the decision, to bring us all.
And were you a big family?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I don't know if I've told you that part. I'm number 13 of 17
oh my goodness.
Children that my parents had. So yeah, talk about being a middle child, always in the middle somewhere. So yeah, coming to the United States was necessary in terms of, being able to improve our life and kind of maintain that livelihood that my dad had maintained as a border crosser, when it was a little easier to cross. But he had come to the Yakima Valley before we moved here, and one of the farmers had lent him some money to be able to bring the family. And so when we came to the United States and we lived in California for about a year, my dad recalls saying, I owe this farmer money, so we got to go back to Washington. So we migrated to Washington State and settled here. The first house we lived in was in Toppenish, right on the Yakima Reservation. And within 3 years, my parents bought a house in Wapato, which is almost unheard of now in 2025. Right. It's like being able to purchase a home is really difficult, but they purchased a home. They made a decision to live in Wapato within the city so that we could get to school and make sure we got an education and
And your father was working as a farmer, in
the fields, but so were we. So I also, at the same year that we purchased a home was the first year that we migrated to Skagit Valley. So we were a migrant farm working family. So a little bit different than, 2025, and it doesn't seem like that long ago to me, but when I was little, the possibilities of families all kind of working together, it was a possibility and a necessity, but that's how we survived. We work in the fields, we picked asparagus during asparagus season, and then moved to Skagit and picked raspberries and strawberries and cucumbers, and that's how we made it. That's how we paid the house bills and ate food and supported ourselves.
Now, as you were saying, things were very different in those days. How do you feel about the sort of current climate we are now? You would not have been able to do that now, or if you were, you probably would have found yourself far less welcome
Right.
in the really very changed climate. The world has
Yeah.
changed a lot in those 50 years.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of us, in the 1980s, the way that we were able to become naturalized citizens or begin that path was through the amnesty changes in 1986. I was going to say 1886. I'm not that old. In the Reagan era. So there was that possibility open for a lot of families at the time. And because we had been working, the farmer that we worked with in Skagit was able to kind of help us verify employment and these questions of whether you're going to be a burden to the United States or not a burden. So he was able to kind of vouch for us as a working family and verify that we had several years of employment and owned a house. So yeah, that the possibilities were different then. So I don't want to say that they were better, because now as a historian looking back at immigration laws and how they shift and change, I like to think of immigration laws as tightening and loosening, or I might even use the word recalibrating. It's always a question of who belongs and who doesn't belong. And sometimes it's more of a question of who behaves and who doesn't behave, right? So this kind of question of belonging and behaving is always being adjusted by laws. And I hear the argument sometimes like, well, we came the right way, or my family came the right way, your family came the wrong way. I don't know if we can ascribe morality to right or wrong ways. There's always a way, some kind of pathway. And our family navigated the paths that we had, right? And that's what families are doing today as well. So whether laws are strict or loose, or borders are dangerous or not as dangerous, there's always negotiation that families are making and choices that they're making about their futures, really.
And the choices that you made eventually were that you did work on the family farm. You supported your family in the crops, etc.
Yeah.
But you wanted to go in a very different path. I'm curious, though, in a group of 17, was that a thing you wanted to make your own mark and not, just follow the path that was there for all your brothers and sisters?
I think, I mean, you're always, I think every one of us is always trying to figure out who we are. Right. And I still, even today at 51, thinking like, how do I kind of gather the sense of self of who I am? And how do I think about myself as a historical being with some kind of history connected to place, even though I don't technically belong in this particular place, right? Uninvited guest, naturalized citizen. I'm trying to be a good neighbor, trying to be a good citizen, a good community member. But there's always that existential, like, who am I? Why am I here? Why did the universe conspire to bring me here at this particular moment? So I carry that and have carried that probably all throughout my life. And I've always sought the answer through stories, right? So like, I have a sliver of a memory of crossing the border. So one of my most early memories of crossing the border was being carried on my dad's shoulders and watching his, kind of hunching over his head like it's fun, right? And watching his boots slice into the sand and like pick up and slice this dry sand. And that's just a sliver of memory. I don't remember the before, getting on his shoulder, getting off his shoulder. I just remember that moment. And I think about that as a way of trying to piece ourselves together, right? These moments of memories that we have, that we try to bring up, that we try to ground ourselves into. But stories are what fill in the gaps. And so it's like, Mom, why do I remember this thing? Or Dad, what do you remember about this? And there's conflicting stories. That's how history is. There's always so many different different ways to look at it. So yeah, I've always just been after stories and trying to figure out how the stories help me make myself and how I use those stories to reinvent myself, really, in some ways. So.
And do you feel yourself a reinvention?
I see myself as both a product of all of the choices that people made about my life, bringing me to the United States, having me, right, bringing me into the world, bringing me to the United States, and then a creation of my own as well. So like a product both, but also like, where do I blossom and grow, and what kind of things do I want to push out into the world. So kind of a mix of creativity and production, I guess.
Now, the way you did blossom, the way
Yeah.
you did want to pursue what you wanted to do is very community focused. It's very much about sharing your story
Yeah.
and helping others.
Yeah.
How did you get into education? Was that a conscious decision, or that's something that naturally evolved for you?
I think probably that's a gift that I carry. I feel like a lot of people, we all carry some gifts that we bring into the world, and sharing stories, facilitating or drawing people's desires, or trying to find little hooks for people to feel like they could belong in that space, I feel is all part of facilitating learning and teaching. And I've always taught. Like, I taught Sunday school for a long time. I worked right after high school, kind of my first job outside of working in the fields was working in the nutrition program for women, infants, and children. A lot of people know it as WIC. And I did nutrition classes and breastfeeding classes. It's always about, for me, how I find something that's really cool, and I'm like, everybody else needs to see how cool this is. And so it's always about like taking and sharing and trying to disseminate that. But yeah, education's always been part of that. But maybe more so the stories. And I feel like the stories are what kind of launch me into education. They launch me into research, into writing, into singing and storytelling in other ways. Yeah.
Yes, because so many of the things that you developed and you decided to do, at the same time, you were already a young mother, you were a family, you built a large family of your own. You've got 5 children of your own. So how did you balance everything and think, I still want to pursue this, I still want to get an education, I want to share my stories, when you had already so much on your plate, if you like, in terms of your own family and your own commitments?
That's a good question. The thing that really launched me into community work was finding myself in community. So kind of after, getting married and starting our family, I tell this story to my students a lot. So some students, I hope they watch, will remember this story. One of my daughters was going to bed one night. I was putting her to bed. She was about 5. And I was asking her about her day. She was at a new school, and I was like, "Who are your friends?" And she said, "Well, so-and-so is my friend. She's Chinese, and so-and-so is my friend, and they're Chinese." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, do you have any other friends?" And she said, "Well, those are my best friends because we're Japanese, right?" And I was so the eyebrow raise. I was so shocked to hear her not see herself grounded in so much of what I carry as a Mexican woman living in the United States, cooking Mexican food, speaking Spanish in the home. I didn't teach my kids Spanish, but I always use a lot of Spanish language. It was at that point that I realized I've missed something here. I've missed something. We don't talk about who we are enough at home. So there was a long time where living life was just like living in what it feels like to live in Yakima, right?
Yes.
Go to work, drink some wine, go home, and then you're kind of just living for the weekend. And soon after that, we found ourselves in a community of musicians that were practicing music from Mexico, and they were practicing the poetry and the dance and a very embodied way of being. And that's what transformed my life. So that's really what launched me into thinking about seeing myself as an artist. Like, oh, if I can learn how to play this instrument, I've always loved to do art. I should go and do that. And so it kind of sparked a lot of other forms of expressions of who I am, and it transformed our family life as well. We began to practice music at home, do a lot of art at home. We'd have family meetings, but our family meetings would be like a lot of paper on the floor and us sitting around drawing while we kind of just talk through whatever came up during that time. So the shift really was, I grew up with this large family, grew up in Yakima, we're farm workers, and you kind of do what America says we do, which is, live really busy working lives and grow a family and go to church and make sure the kids go to school, and that's it. But it was this connection to music, to culture, actually to my own culture, that invigorated these new desires for okay, now everybody's got to get a taste of this in some way or another, So Yeah.
So sharing is very much a key part of who you are, and wanting to share your passions and your knowledge with as many others as you can. Is that your work through Heritage? Do you believe that's your key goal?
Absolutely. I think about, when I think about my priorities and my goals for my students in the classroom and in all the work that we do in the outside of the classroom. So a lot of events on campus, supporting students and connections. I think that a purpose-rich life, so somebody who's walking with a lot of richness and a lot of like understanding, and maybe even not understanding, but after their purpose in life, is really one that's spilling out. It's one that's expressing. It's one that is giving out in some ways. And I don't mean that in a way where we like give so much of ourselves that we're just drained.
Sure.
I mean, sometimes I feel drained of all the stuff that I'm up to, right? And then that's when I need to like kind of backtrack a little bit. Or, my family, my husband will help me backtrack a little bit. Like, okay, that's you need a no committee. You need a committee that's going to remind you to say no to some stuff. But yeah, I think about that at Heritage as well. It's like a purpose-rich life is one that's giving back, right? It's one that's not only doing and walking out your career and your education and your life choices, but you're also somehow connected to community, because we all are somewhere. And it doesn't have to be at the scale of like Yesenia Hunter scale, which is a little absurd sometimes. But it can be at whatever level of community engagement that people are in.
Why do you think it's absurd?
Well, because sometimes it feels like a bit much. I was writing down some of the stuff I was up to this last weekend, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this. Sometimes I say, I can't do it this month, but I could do it next month. And then next month comes, and I've put all the stuff that I couldn't, it just becomes a little bit too much. But I try to walk out what I feel inside, like there's times where I feel like I have art coming out, like, okay, I feel a new art project. I don't know what it is. And I'll journal through it. I'll talk through it. I'll doodle a lot. And then once doodles turn into something that I can see, then I'll do a series of paintings. And so I'll just like furiously paint. And then I don't feel painting for a while. I feel like sewing, or I feel like playing some music, or what I really need to feel is go back to my book, because that's what I need to do that. Doing a lot of writing. So yeah, I feel like sometimes it can feel like this is a lot, but I try to move with what's coming for me.
Do you work well as an artist with deadlines, or is it much easier for you to evolve projects as you feel the passion for them?
I think with writing, deadlines are really important, because writing can be very taxing, because I love to tell stories. I'd rather sit and share a story than have to write it down. And I actually really do like creative writing. I write poetry, I write lyrics, but if I know that I have a deadline, then it helps to kind of contain the really loose creative stuff that can take longer.
Yeah.
So deadlines kind of help me like rein me in and get stuff on paper, get the butt in the chair and the stuff on the paper. And then I can, after the deadline, I can do some editing, or I can share it with friends and get feedback on improvements and stuff like that. So, but with other works, painting and stuff, I kind of like to just flow with where I'm at. So.
Now, if I took all away the passions, the interests, the things, and you could only choose one, which would it be? Would it be the music? I think that maybe, or it isn't the writing? Well, you tell me.
Oh man, that's a good question. I would cheat and say, take it all away and I'll only do storytelling, because I tell stories through so many different ways. So that's a cheat. I tell stories through poetry. I tell stories through the singing and through the music making. I tell stories through teaching, through my writing. So if anything, at least I can say that everything's kind of linked up to like storytelling.
And your husband is also a musician.
Yes.
And you have 5 children. Are they also following in your passions? Are they very creative?
All of them are artists, musicians. Interesting. We look at them with amazement. of course, we all do. We all look at our own children with like, oh, these are the most amazing kids. But yeah, my son, A, is at Heritage University. He's finishing his senior year this year.
Do you teach him?
I see him on campus. We wave at each other. We have lunch sometimes. We carpool together.
Oh, there you go.
So it's great. And he's an environmental studies major, but so he's very interested in the environment and the earth, but is also writing a lot of music about the earth and thinking about community. So all of them are either playing music or doing art or both.
Now, obviously, you were involved in education, but you actually didn't go to college yourself initially. You were keen to get out there, but obviously that's not something you've also wanted to encourage for your own children, or are you much more of a encouraging expression rather than formal education?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, it's a little hard for me because I didn't go to college right after high school. I didn't go until my 30s, and in part not because I didn't want to go, but because I didn't know how to go. That's something that I think a lot of our young people, especially immigrant, students, may not know how to navigate those systems. And some, like my older daughters, haven't gone to college, and in part they grew up. They were graduating from high school when I was in graduate school, so they saw like the struggles of being in school and like what that felt like in the home, what it looked like for their mom to like read a ton of books or write a bunch of paper or always be nose in the book. But I also understand that not everyone's ready for college right after high school. Not everyone's ready to hop right in. And I see that with my students. I see that with my own kids. And so I think what's important is just helping them cultivate their sense of self and their sense of purpose and like what that purpose-rich life is and how they're going to walk that out. And I hope and I think that they'll eventually all go to college. So yeah, that's my dream.
Well, they have a great role model. How's the wine, by the way?
It's delicious.
It is very nice, actually.
Yeah.
Now, you have two pieces of art in shows right now that people can come and see.
Yes.
That's at the Larson Gallery, I believe. So.
Yes, that's correct. I have one piece at the Larson, the Central Washington Artist Exhibition. I can't remember the whole title of it, but I'm very proud because it's the first one I've submitted to Larson and it did get in. So that piece is called Baby Catcher. And then I have another piece out at Titan Arts and Humanities at the Mighty Titan Warehouse that actually two of them over there that you can see. Yeah.
And you perform music and your husband performs music so people can see you and hear you live as well?
Yes. We don't have any upcoming gigs that I can think of. My husband, though, has a couple of projects, and the project that he's mostly working on right now is called House Collective. They've got a show coming up at the Punch Gallery and couple of other places. So I try to post stuff on Facebook. So I'm very active on social media. He's not. I just kind of push things out and try to spread the word. But yeah, very, very much out doing stuff in the community all the time.
And you're involved in the Arts Commission as well. And that's something that's a passion for you. Plus, you've also just been nominated for an award. Did you win an award, I believe?
I did win an award.
It was actually a win. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Humanities Washington awarded, they gave out 50 for their 50th year. And I got one of the awards in the public humanist, I think it's what it's called. And then I just got word yesterday that Governor Ferguson appointed me to the Washington State Arts Commission. So yes, I start my work today. Actually, this is my first day as an arts commissioner officially.
Well, Karen Hannon was one of our guests just on an earlier episode of Wine Time Yakima, so you're going to be working together.
Yes, I just met with her a few weeks ago, so yes, I'm excited for that.
That's very exciting. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, Yesenia, unfortunately, I think this is another guest where we need a two-part show because we only have a limited amount of time. And I find your story so fascinating. And I'd like to talk a lot more about your community work as well, because the Arts Commission is obviously something that you're going to be taking forward. Yeah. But I think, but what we'll do, as we always end with, is some 5 either/or questions, which you haven't had a chance to listen to. So, talking or listening?
Talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me too. Dragons or unicorns?
Dragons.
Mm-hmm. Oh, why is that?
Yeah.
A little bit more fearsome.
Fire.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they both fly. But yeah, dragons.
Going with the dragon. Now, as an artist, colours or neutrals?
Colors.
Yes, now you're very colourful
Absolutely
today.
colors, yes.
Now, are you a vegetarian or are you meat eating?
I am a meat eater. Yes.
Finally, what is the strangest food you've ever tried? And would you try it again?
Well, last week I got to go to Tammy Ayer's name giving.
Oh, right. Yes, we covered that.
And something that I tried that day was eel, and it was delicious. It was cooked beautifully, and I would absolutely try it again.
Was it smoked?
Yeah, it was smoked.
Smoked eel is quite a delicacy.
It was beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, Yesenia, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much for joining us for a glass of wine.
Thank you.
It's been really interesting to learn your story.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling we'll need to bring you back
Okay.
to chat some more and learn some more.
Well, I love to talk, so you know that.
Well, you just confirmed that, exactly. And you're not a dragon at all. I think you're a softer unicorn.
I am.
Well, Yesenia, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Wine Time Yakima. We have a new episode that airs every Saturday night at 7 p.m. And on our YouTube channel, you'll have a chance to catch up on all the previous episodes in the series. We've got lots of guests coming up between now and the end of the year, so stay tuned and keep an eye out for who's going to be coming up. We've actually got, no disrespect, a very special guest for December 20th for our Christmas show. That's one you're not going to want to miss. But thank you very much to Adam and all his team here at the Yakima Visitor Centre for welcoming us back today. Thank you to, of course, our producer, Maddie Mather, for producing the show today, and thank you very much for joining us. Yesenia, it was an absolute pleasure. Cheers.
Cheers.
Good choice on the wine. It's
Thank
very nice. This is a 2 Mountain Merlot, and it's very nice.
It's delicious. Thank
Lovely
you.
to meet you.
Thank you.
Take care.